Hey, is your business ready for a financial turnaround? I've got Stewart Ervin, founder of Bracket Management and a fractional CFO with over 25 years experience, ready to share real strategies that can turn your business into a thriving, efficient machine. In this episode, we're going to learn how to take control of your business finances, some proven methods for business turnaround and maximize the business value. And so, if you're really serious about boosting your business performance, this conversation with Stewart is one you don't want to miss. Hey, entrepreneurs. Are you ready to boost your business profits and grow your business? Welcome to Profit with a Plan podcast, where we share strategies to help you scale your company, increase your profitability, and set up for a successful exit. I'm your host, Marcia Riner, a business growth strategist and the profit booster behind Infinite Profit. I've helped countless entrepreneurs to build highly profitable and sale-ready businesses. That's more profit now and a bigger payout later on. And this episode is sponsored by Infinite Profit, where we don't just talk profit, we deliver it. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, go visit us at infiniteprofitconsulting.com. But before we dive in, I've got something really special for you. And if you've ever wanted to really avoid those profit plateaus, operational headaches, and those pesky growth roadblocks, go grab my free Profit Booster Playbook at boostingprofit.com. That's where I'll share 3 essential strategies to elevate your profits. All right, let's jump into today's episode. My guest today is Stewart Ervin. He's the founder of Bracket Management, a leading fractional CFO firm that specializes in helping small businesses to gain control of their finances and strategically grow. With over 25 years of experience in finance and operations, Stewart has successfully led numerous businesses through turnarounds, driving sustainable revenue and profit increases. His proven track record in optimizing performance, reducing costs, and creating shareholder value has made him the go-to expert for companies looking to thrive in competitive industries. Welcome, Stewart, to Profit with a Plan. I'm so glad you're on.
Thank you, Marcia. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got 2 very similar minds here, audience. So if we go into some, exciting weeds, we're going to have a good time. I think you're going to get some really, really valuable information. But hey, Stuart, so how did you come into becoming a fractional CFO and helping companies do this?
Yeah, so I have always known from a very early age that I wanted to be in business. I just didn't necessarily know what. So I was blessed to have started at the very entry level in my late teens and early 20s and worked my way all the way up to the top. But what that taught me was the inputs and outputs of basically in the manufacturing world or the business world. Fast forward 10 or 15 years, I was hired by an aerospace company to go in and help turn suppliers around that were not supporting the program. At that point, I started recognizing it was what I learned in my early teens and late 20s that allowed me to be successful in that arena. 5 years
That
after that, I was hired by the first company to do a complete company turnaround. So the owner had approached me because he was a supplier to the company I was working for and said, I want to sell my business. I'm not very well diversified, and my on time delivery is dismal, and I'm not sexy to sell, right? And so that's when I really started putting the pieces together that okay, all this stuff I've learned over the last 15 years, I can start applying that. Then the next guy called, so on and so forth. So for me, I have always wanted to own a variety of businesses. You know, that takes capital, and capital is not easy to come by. So I started really, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I came across the term fractional executive. I really didn't know what that meant at the time, but I started zeroing in on, well, if I can't own them, I could definitely help run them. And so I was kind of pivoted into, all right, how can I take this turnaround and get in front of companies to help where they don't have to turn their
Mm.
companies around. And so that's when I basically rebranded Bracket as a fractional CFO company. And my goal is to, help the business owner before they get to the point where they need to be a turnaround. Unfortunately, in many cases, if they're calling me, they're in a turnaround situation and it varies. Some are severe, others are okay. Let's just put a few things in place. But again, it really is something I've always wanted to do, and I took what I learned in my early or late teens and early 20s to apply it.
You know, that's amazing how you've just fallen into what turned out to be a fantastic opportunity for you. And I love the idea that, you're this entrepreneur at heart that wants to be involved in businesses, but yeah, starting them and doing them all, carrying them all on your back is
Yeah.
not always the easiest thing to do. But it's really funny how that business owner knew months or years ago that their business was having problems and they waited so long that it actually needed a turnaround.
That's right.
And for the audience, maybe if you can define what a turnaround is for businesses so maybe they could recognize what it is before they hit it.
Yeah. So traditionally it starts with stalled top line, meaning I have had the same sales revenue levels for 2, 3 years.
Mhm.
Then you'll start to see, okay, my profits are starting to erode. And if you're in your manufacturing arena, which is where I pretty much play, your on time delivery will start to suffer. It's one of those three areas: on time delivery, profit loss, or stalled, if not revenues regressing. And so that's where you should probably start saying, "Hey, I need to do something different here," and raise the flag and bring in some help because it's unique. I've been asked in the past, at what point do companies call you? And I was like, every
Too late.
leader, well, I say every leader has a different ceiling. So I've got some guys who have hit a ceiling at 1.5 million a year. I've got other guys who have 30 million. I've gone all the way up to 80 million. And it really varies based off of not only the company, but basically the guy leading it. So there's going to get a point where you have, as the owner or the leader, you're going to hit a ceiling. And that's when you really got to start looking and saying, hey, I'm starting to stall. Let's do something different here.
Ah, I would love proactive business owners to think about that and be confident to see it and do something about it rather than having the ego set in and going, oh, well, if I just whip my team
Mm,
to produce one more, series of widgets or make one more, sale, or if we can just get that client or oh, I'm going to blame it on the loss of that client. They blame, right?
oh,
Or they
yeah.
push rather than
Yeah.
going, hey, something needs to adjust because innovation, even in the processes and the way we're running business, is essential for growth. And growth
Absolutely.
is essential or you're dying.
That's correct. Yeah, and I always tell them you got to look in the mirror first. And
That's a
it,
hard thing to ask.
it is hard, but to those who do, man, that's great, right? And so actually the very first client that we brought on with Bracket, he was his business was actually growing, but he recognized I've reached the limit.
Mhm.
My business is growing, but I know that I'm not gonna be able to sustain this. And he recognized really early that he's like, I can either get busy growing or get busy dying. There's no in between. And he's like, so, but I'm comfortable. He'll tell you even to this day, he goes, I'm very comfortable. And he literally says, I've brought you on because I know you're going to keep pushing me to grow because I am 100% satisfied. But he feels like he was blessed to have this business and he's a second generation owner. He doesn't want to disappoint. And I
Mm,
was like, man, I said, you are the ideal client for me.
yeah. That's a funny thing because you're straight on point there that if you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Mm,
And growth doesn't mean, market domination and I'm going to become Amazon. It just means positive increasing
mm,
growth. And that could be at a 1% rate a year. But if, due to inflation and competition and, everybody and everything coming at you, costs of wages, right?
that's right.
If we have to continue to grow, and I think people that get comfortable going, I'm good. I got
Yeah.
enough. I'm happy, things are okay. I don't want to rock the boat, right? I don't
Hmm.
want to shake things up,
Yeah.
and it's nice to see that. So thank you for sharing the definition. And hopefully, I realize it, you realize it. Hopefully the audience is kind of grabbing, going, oh, okay, yeah. Turnaround isn't like you're on your last leg and
No,
next step is closing the doors and bankruptcy. It's just hitting that ceiling.
that's right.
Yeah, so nice. So great. So we were going to talk about some really interesting ideas on turning around companies. And I thought it would be really cool if we can go in and talk about what's probably the biggest thing that they that stops them, right? And is it actually delivering the product, or is it the finances? Where do you think the biggest roadblock is?
Yeah, I think the biggest roadblock is it really varies. So every company has been different because they've all somewhat had a different issue. But when you get down to the heart of it, the owner or leader knows that something's up. They can feel it in their gut, right? And so then they start trying things,
Mm,
and they start trying things and it's not sticking. And then all of a sudden panic sits in. They start to lose faith, and they basically start working more in the business and not as much on the business. And so it slowly starts to unravel. And at your weakest point is where you're going to have your biggest issues to show you initially. And it could be on the front end from a sales standpoint. It could be somewhere in between on the supply side or even on the execution side. And it really varies. What I've been able to do is go in and look in and understand you have a demand, which is sales, you have the supply, which is purchasing, you have execution, which is the service or the manufacturing. You've got to be able to look at all three of those variables and okay, I have a problem here. Take a step back, look at the inputs and the outputs in your data to try to pinpoint what your issue is. So again, I find it's going to be one of those three. It's either demand issue, supply issue, or an execution issue. What's really odd is a lot of times people think, oh, it's an operations problem. But if you really trace it back, it really starts with sales, not
mm,
understanding your demand. When you don't understand your demand, you drive chaos through your supply. When you have chaos in your supply, you can't fix the operations. And a lot of times,
mm.
the operations guys get a bad name because they're at the back end of the issue, right? They're always the last one. They always have everything crunched, but you got to really step back and look at all variables of the value stream.
Love it, love it. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that we can do to start to turn around the company. Where do you go in first when you look at those three levers? Do you look at financials? Do you look at the sales on it? Where do you go in first?
Yeah. So the very first thing I do is I do look at a 3 year overview of their financials. That will tell you a whole lot, right?
The
And I look
numbers
at
don't lie.
they do not lie. And I look at all three statements: the balance sheet, profit and loss, and cash. Now, for me, I choose not to ask the owners anything. I just say, hey, if there's interest, send me the 3 years and this information, and I dissect the data because I want to be able to go to the owner and say, hey, this is what your numbers are telling me. Are we right or wrong? Because a lot of times, if you get input from the owner, they're gonna jack with your brain, right? They're gonna tell
Mm,
you their view of the world, and I just want to keep that completely separate. That does two things. One, it shows that there's faith in me that I can take a data set and understand exactly what's happened in their business over the last 3 years without having said one word to them. Two, it allows me to say your data set is either good or bad, because if that's really not what has happened, then we need to fix your data, right? So I start right in with that. And then that's going to tell you a story. Are you stalled top line? Is your top line growing, but your expenses are growing beyond your top line? Is your profit eroding? Why? And then we just start going the same value stream analysis that I just talked about. Where's the problem here? And let's go look at those three inputs and outputs and figure out what's up.
brilliant. I love the way you're stepping around the business owner, not because you don't value him and he hired you. It's like I want to get to the raw
Mm,
information, right? And then when you come back and you ask, you know your answers and the data that came out of it, and then when you ask the owner, hey, tell me where you think the problem is. It also tells you what kind of owner you're working with, right? One that
absolutely.
really truly understands their business, or they're in the blame game, or they're going to have whatever issues they have. And it also teaches you how to help them see their business as a whole, because as we all know, most business owners got into business knowing their thing and
That's
then
right.
mistakenly wrapped a business around it.
That's right.
Rather than going into business and figuring out what they're going to sell.
Oh yeah.
So cool. Okay. So with that financial stability, and I know that that's probably the way that you can plug holes and stabilize the business, so that they can start making better decisions on things that they might else do. So what are some of the methods that you would help them once you've got the financials in line and you're looking at the three legs of the company? What are
Yeah.
some of the methods for the turnaround that you might use?
So we're gonna go in and so there's an understanding of, is the business healthy from a straight financial standpoint. So obviously
Exactly.
you go through that analysis, you'll see. The second thing is it operationally healthy? How's your own time? A lot of times they say, well, I don't know. I don't really track on time. I don't
Mm,
track on service. All right. So let's go ahead and start trying to figure that out.
let's
Because I'm
start
going to look,
tracking.
yeah, because I'm going to understand, are you healthy financially? Are you healthy operationally? And then lastly, are you operational strategically? So
Mm.
say they are healthy financially. Okay. There's nothing really to do there. Let's make sure we can continue and sustain that health. Let's make sure we start propping up your operational healthiness. And again, we're going to do a variety of things in that arena. There's like 5 key plays that we kind of do when we go in to understand that. And once we prop the company up and get it healthy, we go into the sixth play, which is the strategy side of it, where we start to add value into the business. And so it's really kind of that finance operations strategy, because there's no need to grow a business if you can't operationally execute it. And if you can't operationally execute it, your financials are going to erode.
It is so interlocked.
100%.
And it's not just one thing. I had a guest on a few months back that talked about, your business is a business as a whole. It's not departments and it's not lanes and it's not teams over here that are working on different directions. It's an entire body as a whole. And if you look at it as a whole and everything is interconnected, then you could start to move everybody on the same path. That
Yeah,
means your sales gets moving and your operations and your suppliers start to deliver on based on the sales numbers, right? And
that's
it all
right.
just connects together rather than
Yeah.
working three different companies under one
That's
umbrella.
right. That's 100% correct. Yeah, and that is obviously the biggest challenge a lot of times companies face is, how do I break those silos and get everyone working together? Because a lot of people cannot take a step back and see the entire landscape.
Of
They
course.
they are, either they're an ops guy who's made their way to a president's or a lead role. They're a founder who, to your point earlier, I was the best at this and I've now built a business around this and I don't understand anything about this, that, and the other. And so it's imperative for someone in your stable to be able to take a step back and say, "Oh, here's your issue," and it starts here. So
Mm. You know what? And that's where folks like you come in, where, no business has ever made it on its own, right? You've got to have advisors and mentors and people that can actually see through the forest and see the tree that fell down that's in the way for everything that you've got going. So that's why I love the idea of fractional help and advisors to come in like you, because yes, it's an added expense, but it's that extra brain power and visuals and audibles that you can hear things and see things that they can't.
absolutely,
I think that that's so valuable. And in today's time and market, you've really got to be a 20, 30, $50 million company to hire a full-time CFO.
that's right.
Fractionals can come in and do project work. They can do hourly work. They can come in at a fraction of the time and the fraction of the cost and still give you the real value that you need financially to see the business as a whole.
Absolutely,
So, yeah, I love the idea of this, and I know the business owners just go, ugh, or they
yeah,
come out of the gate and start hiring too many VPs
that's right.
instead of getting someone that can really help move the needle
That's
on
right.
this.
I think the fractional movement is so new that I know even in the fractional arena, you ask one guy versus the other, we all are different, right?
Oh, yeah,
There's not a market standard. Hey, this is what a fractional CFO is, and so a lot of times I'm finding that business owners have no clue what it is. They equate you to a consultant, but we're different, right? So we don't just identify the problem; we roll our sleeves up and get along and
yeah.
work along with you. And so I'm finding that I'm having to educate business owners, hey, this is what a fractional is. And then they're like, oh man, I love that. And so then it's a slam dunk. But it's initially that people don't have a clue what it is, right? And so I know the market's somewhat defining what that looks like. But I definitely think it's a part of the future for sure.
Love it. And with that in mind, when you start doing this work, right? I'm a firm believer, you're a firm believer, so I know we're singing to our song, but for the audience view of this, when you make a really strong business, right? When you've got the financials running nicely and the positive increasing cash flow, the operations and delivery of execution of the product or service you're delivering, the fact that the owner's not in there swinging the hammer every day, they're stepping back, leading the company rather than being the company. That makes for an incredible company that is attractive, or you said earlier, not sexy, but they are sexy
Yeah.
because there's so many companies, there's so many buyers right now
Hmm.
for businesses that are running well.
That's right. Yeah. And
That's another that's how you can make money and potentially exit sometime.
that's
Doesn't
right.
have to be when you retire. You could now, if you're the entrepreneurial type, you could like go start the next version, right?
That's right. Yeah. And that's one of the bigger things I try to identify day one or day two. What is your end goal? And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times I don't know. Sometimes they know exactly. I want to be out in 5 years. I have a son that's going to take it over. Sometimes they say, like the first two turnarounds I did, I came in knowing the business was going to sell. And so there was an end goal in mind, and we just executed to that. And so you have to understand what is your end goal, and then I build a strategy that backs up all the way into that.
Exactly, exactly. And these strategies and these things that you can do, just because your business is flatlined and just because your business is starting to turn downward, doesn't mean it's the end of the line.
That's right.
You can turn it around and create a
100%.
business that has real true value to it. And these strategies can actually do it. So you mentioned earlier that you have some key strategies that help
Hmm.
increase the value of the company. What are those?
Yeah. So the biggest value drivers that you have that add to your bottom line is the very first thing is we focus on pricing strategies. A
Mm,
lot of times companies, they have fought so hard to get the customer in the door. It might have been a cost competitive situation. And so they really do not take advantage of their pricing. If their costs are going up, they normally eat that. And so our goal is to come up with a solid pricing strategy. We also look at pricing from a position of, do you have some type of an IP or something special that no one has that you can fully take advantage of that? And so that's
mm-hmm.
really the first value driver there. Every dollar you can have, every dollar that you can charge your customer goes directly to the bottom line. The
Love it.
second focus is cost improvements, cost takeout. Again, as companies grow, they tend to get a little loose. They'll start to see their overhead creep up. They'll see their expenses go up. They may or may not be tracking their material as a cost of goods. And so we really focus on not only maintaining, but reducing your cost from a year over
Mm.
year standpoint. So I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt. So a lot of the stuff we do is we go in there and try to implement lean manufacturing and, Six Sigma mindsets in these guys. And the
But
last
that
one,
but that Lean Six Sigma, that can be across any kind of industry. It's
100,
not specific only to manufacturing. That kind of cost analysis and waste analysis can be on employee time in a service business. So
that's
I
right.
love that. I love that
That's right.
space. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And the last value again, so every penny you save flows directly to the bottom line, right? So we're going to watch our costs. We make sure that as a percentage of sales you are maintaining. The goal would be actually to reduce it 3, 4, 5% year over year. And the last value driver is new business growth. You've got to
Mhm.
always be having something, one, to continue to have price to, two, to continue to take cost out, and then it's just healthy to have your business grow year over year. So if you do a 3% pricing strategy, 3% cost reduction strategy, and a 3% new business strategy, and while maintaining a cost structure that's effective, you can anticipate roughly 8 to 10% year over year growth in net income. But it takes insane discipline and intention with everything you do to make that thing happen.
But it takes incremental changes, not these big wonkin',
Correct.
turn everybody upside down kind of changes. A 3% change
That's
in your
right.
cost structure
That's right.
leads to a 10% or more, growth. That's
That's right.
amazing numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
You have
love
to
that.
really do all three. And a lot of
Yes.
times what you'll see is they'll freak out. I got to go sell. And all of a sudden you'll see their top line just quadruple year over year. And it's like now you're going to lose control. Now your costs are truly going to get out of control. Since you're out of control operationally, you can't go grow again. So your stuff starts to drop back down. Again, it's to your
Yep.
point, incremental, controlled, disciplined growth. So I try to tell people 6% top line growth is healthy and controllable. You can
Mm,
sustain that. It's manageable. You can manage your costs in that arena. It's reasonable. So anytime you see more or less, you have to say, okay, is this a healthy growth? And again, that's a generic number, but that's just a good target to hit for.
I love it. I love it. And it's not out of line, right?
Right.
So it's something that's a reasonable go for it, but you've got to have a strategic plan. You've got to know and have everybody pushing towards that goal so nothing falls apart. I love your example of, oh, if you go out and you go, oh, we got to sell, and then they, get a lot of good sales, and then their operation can't deliver on it and
Yeah,
everything falls apart. You've got to have everybody moving in that same direction.
that's
And I
right.
think doing it without the spikes and the valleys, really allows your company to smooth into the new growth and
That's
allow
right.
you to scale essentially to match the growth. So it's a lot of great opportunities. And I love this because all of this, leads to a great business that you can sell sometime in the future. So I know that these ideas can stay put for a long time. So when we're talking about turnarounds, so let's kind of get back onto the idea of turnarounds. Um, how long does one take? What's the
Hmm.
expected time from the owner going, all right, we got a problem. We engaged Stewart and now we're rolling. What should I expect as a business
Yeah.
owner
Obviously, the severity and the size of the business matter,
in the
but
complexity?
yeah, I normally say, and because my track record is at 3 months, we have stabilized the business, and traditionally speaking, you start to see a turn upwards. Um,
Nice.
so again, for me, you just go in and you look at those inputs and outputs, and you can pretty much within a day or so say, okay, this is your problem. You just have it, and then you just start executing. So again, if the talent is there and the willingness to change is there, again, I see on average after about 3 months, we've most of the time washed away all the past dues, and now you're in a position to grow. And so that's kind of my average.
Love it. So it's a very short runway to
Yeah,
to start to see things stabilize,
that's right.
and then you can start to make good decisions. And I think that's what takes your expert vision, right? To be
Yeah,
able to go in and go, wait a minute, I'm not going to listen to you, Mr. Owner. I'm going to go behind you and not behind you, but I'm going to go around you and look at the numbers and see what I see and then come back
absolutely.
and then let's work together to solve the problems that you may not have seen or you may see, but you pretend not to see, right?
That's right.
And then focus on the good things. But knowing that 3 months is a short amount of time to really see some headway and
Yeah,
to stop the bleeding, right?
that's
Plug
right.
the holes and find out where the next best step is. And
Absolutely.
again, to talk about the fractional piece and the CFO role in that space, you're only going to get that there. You're not
That's
going to
right.
get that by hiring just a marketing guy or
Mm-hmm.
just a sales guy or just an operations guy. You need, and I use the term guys loosely, so
I
hey,
get it. Yeah.
ladies, you know, um, but you got to have someone that can see the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. It really boils down to that. You need to get a guy who can come in and see the entire picture, and also you have to get a guy who's somewhat of a cheerleader or a coach. I find that again, staying in the manufacturing arena, a lot of times I'll go in and say, okay, what's your on time delivery? 52%. Well, what's your goal? Our goal is 80%. Okay, that's going to go to 98. We're going to go ahead and set it at 98 because we're going to get to 85 so fast. And of course, immediately we haven't been at 90% in 3 years. In every single case, they're at 98% on time before they even recognize it. And you
Yeah.
got to better paint that vision of what success looks like and drive and drive and drive. And
And
it
that's it.
happens.
And that's it. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get
That's
there?
absolutely. Yeah.
So having that clear vision to be able to say, okay, so now I know what your industry standards are, right? And where you're sitting in this and where do you think you can go? And based on the numbers and the product and the team players and everything you've got going, again, it's that big picture.
Big picture. Yep.
We can see this happening. Can you see that happening? Oh, wow. Well, let's borrow
Yeah.
my rose-colored glasses for a
Yeah.
little while and let's look at this. And then when you build that strategy out, it starts to go, hey, then
Hmm.
then then you're a rock star, right?
That's right. Yeah. The first time I think the second company went in, their on time delivery goal was something like 90%. I said, all right, it's 98. Well, I mean, they just chastised me. So internally, I'm like, well, crap, maybe I am crazy. But then I hit it. And I was like, okay, good. Then third time I hit it. And so now it's just like, oh, I can with absolute certainty say, yeah, you'll get 98%. As long as you
And
do
that's
these things, you'll get it.
exactly because your system and your strategies are proven.
That's correct. Yep.
And that's something that every business owner needs to have is that team player whether they hire on or fractionally, preferably fractional, because you don't need to hire if you don't need to hire. But, to be able to move the business in the direction you have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and oftentimes the founder can't get you there.
That's
Your
right.
buddy you hired from college that's your VP of sales can't get you there. You
100%.
know, yeah, the
Yeah.
marketing team's not going to get
Yeah.
you there because they're only
Mhm.
one part of the movement. The sales is the other part of the movement. The operations is I mean, there's
Yeah.
just too many moving parts. And yeah, sorry, I keep singing the same song.
No.
But but I mean it is true. And so many look for the immediate band-aid of like, oh, we're leaking over here, let's plug it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That is the number one play that these guys make. And then they lose sight of what else is going on, and all of a sudden that's fixed, and now this is double the problem, and off you go.
Yeah, so I love it. All right, Stuart, where can listeners find out more about you, how to plug the entire thing, turn around their business, even before it's starting to fail? You just hit a ceiling. How can we do this? How can we work with you?
Yeah, so we developed an assessment. It's roughly 35 questions, and it focuses on the three areas of strategy, operation, and strategy, financially, and operations. And it will, once you complete this assessment, you'll get a grade. It's all based off of data. You'll get a grade in regards to where you rack and stack operation. Again, this assessment was based off of all the companies that we've looked at, and we've been a part of over the last 10 to 15 years. So you can find that on my website at bracketmgmt.com /assessment. And again, you'll get a personalized report back to you. And again, we'll tell you what you're doing good and what you could improve on.
So how do your clients feel about the assessment when they get graded a C plus or maybe even a D or a
Yeah.
B plus?
Yeah.
How have they reacted with those?
The reality is most of them say, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, you
Yeah, I believe
nailed it.
that. I do. I believe that. So yeah, it's been positive feedback so far. But I mean, again, it's not based off of it's all objective evidence. It's not me at all, right? There's no subjectivity to me at all.
Love
And
it.
so you can't argue with a number. Can't argue
Exactly.
with a number.
You can't argue with the number. I think that's the line of the podcast. But you know what? The numbers, if you understand your numbers, and you can recognize what's going on with them, you can make decisions to turn your business around. So,
Absolutely.
and I know that most businesses need some sort of turnaround, even when they're doing well. So I
That's
love
right. That's absolutely correct. That's why I try to tell you, get someone involved before you have to get someone involved.
much easier relationship to have, right?
That's right.
Stop the bleeding before it starts. So that's great. All right. This was really good. Listeners, I thank you for tuning in today. I hope you picked up some valuable insight and some actionable ideas that will help you make your business more profitable. I know I did, and I'm in the same business. So there's so much that you can learn. And just because you have a fractional CFO or a growth strategist or what have you, doesn't mean they're all the same. Everybody has their own specialty and deal with it, but it helps. So I know that I've even learned some information off you, Stuart. So this is wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. As I mentioned before, if you want to take your business to the next level, go grab my free Profit Booster playbook at boostingprofit.com, where I break down these steps to drive profit, streamline your operations, and prepare your business for future growth. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss future shows. You can always catch Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast players. And we're looking forward to more great profitable information and strategies on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them.